Otherwise, any other subject you wish to ask. Um, Let me just say a few words. You know, you must have heard about Martin Luther King. Have you? Martin Luther King,
Yes, sir.
the
Yes,
black,
sir.
liberation leader in US. Yeah, have you? Raise your
Yes.
hands if you have. Yeah, okay.
Yes, yes.
Now, Martin Luther King said a very good thing. He said that the arc of the moral universe is very long, but it always stretches towards justice. That was a very classical remark he gave. You understand what I'm saying, right? Yeah. If you do not understand, just check me. Just stop me there and ask me, sir, please explain what you said. ମୁଁ ଓଡ଼ିଆରେ ବି କହିପାରିବି, but I would prefer that I speak in English so that you get acquainted with the kind of English you will be required to speak in your interviews and in your papers and all that. So the point I'm making is this arc of the moral universe, which is, according to Martin Luther King, was bending towards justice, and he was an American. In America today, it is bending towards injustice. The fact that a convicted felon, a convicted criminal, has been elected to the highest office of the land, which used to be celebrated as the most ancient democracy in modern times, it itself shows how badly justice has faltered in that land. Coming back to India, where we believe in the strength of our constitution, and Professor Mishra is a very, very eloquent champion of the Indian constitution. We, our entire discourse in India is built around the constitution. We are going to have the 26th January very soon, where on the day on which the constitution became the authority of the land, and the constitution came into strength, and we became a republic, as you know, 26 January 1950. It was adopted just 2 months before, 26 November 1949, after about 3 years of drafting of the constitution. So we believe in that. And if we call ourselves a democracy, and our leaders call themselves also that India is a big democracy, the sustenance of the democracy is the constitution. There is no other basis of a democracy other than a constitution. And India's constitution is perhaps one of the most unique constitutions of the world. It is not only one of the longest, but its flexibility, its way to adapt to various conditions, various diversities, various important ramifications, be they political, social, economic, legal, whatever, that is something very unique of our constitution. The second point I will make is, all of you are, I'm sure you are aiming to be administrators, either at the state level or at the central level. Either you are through OPSC or other bodies in the state, or UPSC or other bodies in the center. So I visualize all of you as future administrators, as future civil servants. We call ourselves civil servants because we work at the service of the people. And democracy basically means the people-centric administration. That is democracy. So we have to critically analyze, where are we today? The India in which we grew up is not the India in which you are growing up. Absolutely not. There is a very big difference. And I think the difference is attributed to several factors. And one of the major factors is technology. You've got a lot of technology. You have got technology on your palm. And in that, you can read the entire affairs of the world today. We didn't have that privilege. We didn't have that technology on our palm. We use basically our mental faculty to read books, journals, absorb what we read, make notes, read them, reread them, revise them, go back to our teachers, ask them questions. So we believed in that method. Now the methodologies have changed. The pedagogy, the entire pedagogical system has changed. So for me, I would take you, my first advice to you when you are budding administrators is you serve the people who you are expected to work for, but don't be servile to the government. There is a distinction between service to the people and being servile to the government. This will be my first advice to you. Governments keep changing. Governments come and go. Whosoever is elected, they are all elected by the people of India. And the people of India are we, the people of India, who have made the Constitution. The Constitution, the preamble begins by that. We, the people of India, have given us ourselves this Constitution with these qualities enshrined in that. So we, the people, are the most important component. So you serve we, the people, but don't serve a government or be servile to a government which is anti-people. Distinguish that in your mind. Because once you compromise yourself, your morals, your ethics, your ways you have been brought up with, you are in a different world. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're saying. You don't know where you are. And you would be like many toys in the present day system, playthings of people who can manipulate you, besides technology, which would manipulate you big time, you know. The second point I will say is that India's domestic situation has a large bearing on India's foreign policy. Listen to me carefully. What I'm saying is our domestic policy is not an isolated thing. It is not that India is a big power. It has, of course, it tries to be big, but we don't know yet whether it is actually in the constellation of nations, some 200 odd countries in the world who are members of the United Nations, how big India is. It could be population-wise the most populous. It could be economically, the GDP growth could be the highest. But how big India is in that composition of these nations, that is for you to critically analyze. Be critical, ask questions. I always tell my students in my library, and Satyajit will hear me out, I always tell my students, ask questions till the end of it, till the time you are fully satisfied that you've got an answer which will satisfy you. Keep on asking why. Keep on asking why. Why is this happening? Because you are reading a lot of things from a lot of sources. Sorry, green tea. Upon Janchan green tea piye. Oh, thank you so much. Koti Rock, wait a minute. It is Satyo was still ଆଉ କିଛି ଟ୍ରେନିଂ ପାଇଁ ବୋଲଥିଲେ ବେଟର ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଛୋଟ ଷ୍ଟୁଲ ଆଣିକି ରଖିଦେଲ. So what I am saying is you keep on asking questions if you do not understand something, because many things are happening and the world is becoming very complicated, very convoluted, very fake world also. The social media has turned the world upside down. There are some good social media, there are some bad social media, so you have to discriminate. You have to choose which one you will take it that is telling the truth. There's something like fact check also these days, and you keep on checking whether this information is correct or not. Because today in India, what I feel personally is a lot of this fakery is going on. lot of this fake news is circulating. So you have to be absolutely on your toes to distinguish between what is fake news and what is genuine news. That is the first thing. And for an administrator to be, this is very, very important, that you should be armed with correct facts and figures and information. It is a tendency now in our government that whatever statistics we are getting, of course, we are not getting much of government statistics because since 1991, we haven't had a census also. Now there is talk of going for a new census, and perhaps they will include caste also as part of the census. We don't know that yet. That's a demand of the opposition. But the statistics about India itself are not clear. The statistical department, what they generate, we do not know whether they are correct or not. So obviously you rely on statistics which comes from foreign agencies, and they give a different aspect of India. Some people say in India that those figures are exaggerated, those figures are inflated. For example, poverty index, we are placed very low in the poverty index. And they go by the calculation on poverty, the classic calculations of poverty. And there are about, let's say, about 250 million poorest of the poor people in India. So we constitute one of the largest numbers of the poorest people of the world in our country. If that figure is given to you, you will tend to disbelieve it perhaps. You will say, how come India is a developing developed country? India is emerging as a big power. Then how come so much of poor people are? Suppose I say that in our press freedom index, we are at the bottom of the scale because our press, our so-called media is compromised. I'm talking of the government media. Government media is playing a totally different role than what it used to be in our time. We could rely on that media in our time. Now this media is not reliable. That's why you're looking for alternative media. You are going towards social media. Precisely because the government media, what ferrets out facts and figures are not correct. That is what the government is feeding to tell that to the people. As an administrator, you have to be very careful because what figures you are getting. So always keep comparing between what figures you are getting from outside sources and what figures you are getting from government sources. And if you find there is a difference, and there is a difference in many of our figures, nutrition, mortality, press freedom, poverty, healthcare, all these are elemental figures. All these are basic indicators, what we call developmental indicators. On all these aspects, India is not faring well, if you ask me. But the government of India will give you another picture. So who do you believe? Now you are going to serve the government of India. You will do your duty. Please do that. But always have that critical faculty alert in yourselves that what you are given to administer, see what is right, what is wrong, and accordingly go the way you think is correct. You understand what I'm saying? Always use your mental faculty to distinguish between the right and the wrong. Because there is now a tendency in our leadership to somehow put other factors in play to divert people's attention from the real factors. For example, poverty, inflation, unemployment, healthcare deficiency are real factors of life. All of you are going through that. We see that in real life. All these are there. You go out to the market, you see how inflation is badly affecting us, how prices are going up. But government will play a different tune. It will say a different thing. Then again, on the economic front, of course, Professor Mishra will tell you more about it. On the economic front, we are not doing good at all, in my view. He may have a different view, but in my view, we are not doing good at all. First of all, our rupee is sliding down, down, down. It's now gone beyond, I think, 86.5 now for a dollar. And some people think that rupee will remain strong. Rupee will be a part of a global, combination of currencies. My view is a little different. I think that for the foreseeable future, dollar will still rule the market. The global market will be dictated by the variations of the dollar. And still we'll be linked to the dollar currency more than any other currency in the world. BRICS, BRICS. BRICS is an alternative power grouping now. It has 10 members, of which India is one of the founding members. It is appearing to be an alternate world order. It is projecting itself as an alternative world order to the so-called international rules-based order fostered by the previous administration, which is the Biden administration. So the BRICS as a body could be becoming more and more dominant, but the currency of BRICS, which they are trying to bring out, a BRICS pay kind of structure, that I am not sure whether that will come into application in the foreseeable future. Even if half our population, more than half of our GDP belongs to the BRICS members. So be careful at that. Let me come to Trump now. It is an important subject. In 4 days from now, today we are 16 today. So he is taking the oath of President of the United States on the 20th of January, as per the tradition. He will be the first president as a convicted criminal to be the President of the United States. His first quality is that he is a convicted criminal and holds the highest office of the land. And he will be the most powerful person of the world. And he has been convicted on 34 felonies, on 34 grounds. But because he has been the president-elect, the judiciary had had no other way but not to impose a sentence on him. Otherwise, he was liable to be sentenced to punishment or penalties. Those were waived in his case because he is now elected by the people of America as their president. So, as a president, he holds some immunity. And sometime back, the American judiciary has itself pronounced that a president or a president-elect will not be liable to punishment or penalties like ordinary other citizens are, and he'll be exempted. There'll be no penalties for a president-elect. So on that ground only, Mr. Trump has gotten away. Otherwise, any other person in his place would have been in jail. Because American justice system is very, very clear about it, that he has committed offense, he needs to be penalized, and he needs to be put some penalties for his crimes, whatever crimes he has committed. But this is a man who has committed so many crimes which have been proven, and he has been convicted, but he still will hold the highest office of not only America, but perhaps the most powerful office of the world. I start with that. What is India's role going to be, or India's relations going to be with Trump's America? That is an obvious question. Anybody will ask me that. We saw during his last term, his first presidency, and I will take 2 minutes on this before I'll give the microphone to my colleague. Yes. You have to be a little loud, my dear. As compared to global currency. My question is that what should be the way forward to become Indian rupee as a global currency or hard currency? What should be the way forward? You are saying that Indian rupee will be a global currency? How can we make Indian rupee a global currency? It cannot be a global currency now because we are quite weak economically, in my view. So it will take time. What should be the how to make it? You have to be a global power to make it. We are not a global power. We are a middling power. We claim to be a big power, but actually those claims are unsubstantiated. So we are just a middle-level power. Our only strong point is a burgeoning population, a huge population, a humongous population, a population which is now going bonkers because there's no way to give them jobs. So unemployment is sky high. So there are many indicators which point to the direction that India is not going the proper way to building up its economy very sound. Even with the rupee becoming weaker, people said that our export should be, should get a boost, but it is not happening. And I think Professor Mishra will explain why it is not happening. Because normally, when the rupee gets devalued, our exports, we should gain more from our exports and less from our imports, because our imports would suffer. We would pay more for our imports and we will gain more from our exports. That is the normal theory. But now it seems even when the rupee is getting weaker and weaker by the day and by the hour, our exports are not, bulging up. It is not. There are many factors for that. I think he will give you in detail. But my short answer to your question is not in the near future. I don't presume that Indian currency will be part of a global currency, or India is also not in favor of a BRICS currency to be a part of the BRICS currency. It has been ruled out because when Mr. Trump gave this that if you put up an alternative currency to the dollar, we will put 100% tariffs on all your products. So that was a big threat which Mr. Trump gave. Can you understand me? Sure. Then why are you looking at me like this as if I'm babbling away something? It's okay, right? So, that is the situation because now Trump will play three cards, particularly in its relations with India. The first card will be a visa card, which is famously called as H-1B visa. Our major exports to the United States is in the field of software, service sector. That will get a big, big jolt now because the Trump administration will cut down on issuance of visas to any national, not Indians, but across the board, because it is virulently anti-immigration. They don't want many foreigners to come because they want to make America great again. So in this precedent, in this concept of MAGA, other nationals coming and taking away their pie, it doesn't suit them. So even if there are certain advisors in his administration, like Ramaswamy, an Indian origin person in his administration, who is in favor of continuation of the H-1B visa regime to Indian IT specialists, others are not in favor of that. So we will suffer there. Earlier, what was happening? If I go to America on a H-1B visa, my wife will come after me. She will also apply for a H-1B visa because she will get an employment in the same company. And together we'll set up a family. We will have some children. The children being born in America will become American citizens. This is a kind of a, Indian game which was being played, particularly in the West Coast, where you have bulk of IT specialists, that they first come, hired by some company, any big company, either Indian or American. They bring their wives. The wives get also the same visa status, and together they settle there for a particular period of time, produce children, and declare those children as American citizens because they are born in America. And as per American rules, a person who is born in America can have a legitimate claim to be an American citizen. So the children become American citizens. Because the children become American citizens, the parents can also apply for being American citizens. So it's a very vicious nexus which the Indians have been doing all this time. Trump will break it. Trump will not allow too many issuance of H-1B visas. So that will be the first casualty. The second casualty will be tariffs, because Trump has already said that India is a big tariff abuser. He has told that in so many words, that because we put 100% tariff on their Harley Davidson bikes, which are American products, he has got very miffed the way we put tariffs on American imports into India. So he is now threatening that we will definitely increase tariffs on Indian exports to America. So now if it is like 10% or 15%, he will double it. In that case, what will happen is we now hold a surplus, a trade surplus vis-a-vis America. I think America is one of the few developed countries with whom we have a trade surplus. We run massive trade deficits with countries like China and other places from where we are importing oil, Russia, for example. But with America, we have a trade surplus so far. But if these tariffs are increased, then this trade surplus will again fall, and we may become again a trade deficit with America also. Number two. Number three, trade. Now, we have certain, what we call our prize sectors, which pharmaceuticals, gems and jewelry, processed minerals, these kind of 3, 4 domains which we have. We are, of course, diversifying to other sectors, but they will suffer because Trump is a person who does not believe in any institution, in any organization. He will not respect WTO. He will not respect the rules of the game. He will not respect, he will withdraw from NATO. He will be an abuser of the international legal system, so which we respect. So it will recoil on us because we cannot hold us properly. We will, suffer vis-a-vis Trump, in Trump's America. Now, on the people to people, the cultural part, there we may use our soft power to gain influence within America's power corridors, and we have enough of that. We have, for example, yoga is a big Indian soft power, which is now all over the world. And we have, in fact, I think 26 June is the International Day of Yoga declared by the United Nations. We can, sorry, 21st June, 21st June. So we are known to be a yoga supplier to the rest of the world. Similarly, cinema, similarly, cricket, similarly, Indian cuisine, which are soft powers of ours, they will stay. And our diversities are also our strength, so they will stay. But the way the image of India has been now propagated outside, that will come a casualty in our relationship. Now, our targeting American nationals on American soil, and you know which case I am talking about, the Pannoon case. He could be a Khalistani terrorist for us, but he is a respected American who is living in America. So targeting an American national on American soil is non-acceptable to America. You just cannot go into their country and kill one of their nationals and say that this national was indulging in anti-Indian activities. You can't do that in America. So this Pannoon case, like the Canadian, that other murder which happened in Canada, in which there was an India hand, as alleged by the Canadian government, these are going to play into the dynamics of our relationship with America, with other Western countries. Now, when I talk about Quad, we have a group called Quad, all of you should be knowing. That may be affected because Trump's main concern now, and Professor Mishra will bear me out, is China. How to contain China, how to make up with China. Trump called Xi, the president of China, personally to invite him to his inaugural ceremony. Of course, he politely refused that he will not come. He will send one of his subordinates to come for that occasion. Now look at India. Mr. Modi claimed himself to be a very good friend of Mr. Trump in his first term. And we all know about this Texas Howdy Modi, that event in Texas in 2019. We also know about Trump's coming to India in February 2020 and being paraded around Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad. We also know about that. So we are building on the chemistry, personal chemistry between these two leaders, Trump and Modi. But Modi has not been invited to the inaugural. You will definitely ask me that, sir, how is it that so many leaders have been invited? In fact, almost all the extreme right leaders of the world today, be they Italy's Prime Minister Meloni, be they Argentina's President Milei, be they Salvador's President, be they Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban, be that Turkey's President, what is his name? Erdogan, all of them, without exception, all these rightist leaders of the world have been invited today to Trump's inaugural. But Mr. Modi has not. Mr. Modi has not. In his place, the Foreign Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, is going to attend the inaugural. Now, the story goes that Mr. Jaishankar was sent in advance to Washington, D.C., and he was camping in Washington to get an invite by the incoming Trump administration for Mr. Modi to attend his inauguration. But he has not succeeded. So the Foreign Office gave a spin, meaning our Foreign Office, the Indian Ministry of External Affairs, to which I belonged once upon a time. They have given a spin saying that Jaishankar has been invited by name to attend the inauguration of Mr. Trump. Now, as per my knowledge, protocol-wise, for a presidential inauguration, normally they would invite the heads of states or heads of governments. Normally, foreign ministers are not invited by name. Foreign ministers can represent the heads of state or heads of government, but they cannot be invited by name. Whereas the Ministry of External Affairs, in a readout, they said that Mr. Jaishankar has been personally invited by the Trump administration by name. So that sounds a little kind of convoluted to me. Though he's a very dear personal friend of mine and we studied together, we went to the same school, we joined the service in the same year. But this sounds a little murky to me, that he has been invited by name to attend the inauguration. So what I'm saying is always keep your discriminating faculty active within your mind, that what is going on now. He is going to be there. He will obviously represent the Indian government and he's obviously speak on behalf of Mr. Modi. But I am told his mandate is only to attend the inaugural. And there are many ceremonies which will follow after the inaugural. He will not be given any invite to attend any of those ceremonies. He will just meet some of the Trump officials, incoming officials of the Trump administration, attend this inauguration ceremony and get back to it. Now, I feel personally that this has been a big blow to India and it's a big humiliation to India-US relations right at the outset, right at the beginning of Trump's coming to office. And this does not, augur well for our relationships to foster further. That is my feeling. I leave at this point, and I think I'll attend Professor S.N. Mishra to come and speak about the economic and defense part of India-US relation. And then if you have any questions, we'll go from there. And the general world order, where India is situated, if anybody asks me, we will...
Good afternoon, sir.
So may I invite Professor Mishra to come and join me here, and let
Hello,
me
sir.
have a cup of tea in peace while you talk.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes. Sorry, anybody, any question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, talks about some ethical issue in international relations, sir.
I can't.
Please continue.
Sir, talks about some ethical issue in international relations.
Yes, inauguration.
Ethical issues. Ethical issues.
Ethical issues. Ethical use. Issues. What are the ethical issues you are pointing at?
Sir, international relation.
Ethical management.
No, sir.
He's asking that in international relations, there are some ethical issues about that.
Yes, one of the ethical issues is just you cannot target a national of a foreign country on foreign soil. This is an ethical issue. And in fact, today in the news it has come that one Vikas Jadhav, who erstwhile was employee of our intelligence department, he has been charged specifically and indicted on the charge of being behind the plot to target Pannun. This is an ethical issue. And I think there will be a big ruckus on this issue, though if there is a deal, because Mr. Trump is a great deal maker, is a great negotiator, is a great, what do you call, a business person. He likes making deals. If he gets a good deal from India, perhaps I won't be surprised if this entire plot gets disappeared in the American judicial system. I won't be surprised. But knowing that American judiciary is very strict, I would perhaps foresee that this issue could cloud our relations with America further. This particular issue, which is, according to me and to you also, could be an ethical issue. Is that the answer you expected?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now, may I have
Sir,
the privilege of...
Good afternoon, sir.
Can we not keep the questions later?
Can we keep all the questions till the end? Let me finish also. So then we can
Along with you, the others can also question.
answer it depending on the specialization that each one of us has. We'll answer.
Yeah, is that okay? If you could kindly, because you are there, you are attending this session, so please hold on till the end. Then we will perhaps write down the questions, and one by one we can give the answer.
I have about half an hour session for question and answers. I'll take about 20 minutes. So
Please.
thank you.
What is it?
I'll just use the board. I'll use the board. Comfortable bus. Good afternoon, friends. I think we couldn't have been more fortunate to have the benefit of the benefit of a very brief but a very, very, very illuminating, very brief but very illuminating lecture by one of our very illustrious ambassadors. I'll divide this little discussion with all of you in two parts. One is I will start by saying that I'll start by saying that Martin Feltz, just keep a note, friends. Martin Feltz, who is the editor of Financial Times, about 3 days back, he wrote a beautiful tribute on Dr. Manmohan Singh, who passed away. And it's an absolutely wonderful tribute from someone, who knew him very, very closely when he worked in the South Asian Commission, again as a Secretary to Government of India, as a finance minister. He knew him very, very well. So he said, many people ask me that, is Dr. Manmohan Singh an overrated economist? Even because I also worked very briefly with him, but I knew him a little bit. So many people ask me that, was he really a great economist or jugadi economist? But a chalu economist, is it that he had the benefit of really wonderful technocrats to help him, and he was at the helm, and was he successful? So Martin Feltz says that in 1964, friends, he wrote an article on India's protectionism, trade protectionism. The article was Trade in India and the trends and the disturbing trends. Trade in India and the disturbing trends. This was 1964, where he pointed out how India is missing out as a global power, which we all expected India to be, because we were resorting to protectionism. So, and this article became the starting point for India to promote free trade. And we had Professor Jagdish Bhagwati, then Srinivasan. They were the ones who, this was the troika. Dr. Manmohan Singh, Bhagwati, and Srinivasan. This is the troika who were responsible much before economic liberalization came to very strongly root for free trade for India, that India must be part of a global world. Are you getting my point? So he said he doesn't require any appellation from S.N. Mishra or Mr. Modi, how good an economist he is, or he doesn't require a certificate that he had breakfast with Barack Obama. So he says he has his rights to be called a great economist because his article was in 1964. What Ambassador Malaya mentioned, that as civil servants, the most important thing is, how do you distinguish, please note down friends, between opinion and fact, opinion and truth. Why I like him and why I generally request him to speak at different fora is because of this, because he brings out truth, the unvarnished truth. So therefore, you don't require a certificate by right-wing economists that he was a poorly, very highly overrated. So his work shows for himself, his research work. So therefore, as civil servants, the first thing I would mention is, please have your pursuit has to be the pursuit of truth. As he mentioned very rightly that sometimes the official statistics could be little garbled, or the official statistics could be very uncomfortable for the government of India, like the NFHS 5 survey. This is the NFHS 5 survey. Now, when this NFHS 5 survey, which was published by Indian Institute of Population Science in Bombay, the director was hounded. He was suspended because he came out with a lot of truths about the problems of malnutrition. He was the one who said that anemia in India is going up from 52% to 56%. He was the one who said the percentage of malnutrited children in this country is more than many sub-Saharan republic, it's 33%. He was the one who said that all this claim about Swachh Bharat is a big sham if you go to certain states. So therefore, he said, please pause and see the real India, the contours of development, which Ambassador Malaya mentioned. Are you all getting me? So it's very, very important for all of you. So therefore, it is not as if that every statistics that gets published is false. Like for instance, supposing there is a statistics in the report which comes out from UNDP in the Human Development Index or the Gender Inequality Index. So you must not, get carried out by government propaganda that they're all biased against India. Therefore, our ranking is 136. Our ranking is 221 in the Gender Inequality Index. So therefore, I keep on saying all of you that growth and development are like two wheels of a country's chariot, and they must move together. And certainly they are not moving together. There is absolutely no evidence to show that the growth parameter and the development parameter are not moving in sync. And for that, you have the human development report. Just keep a human development report. You have the gender inequality report. You have the gender development index report. A whole host of reports, NFHS reports. So therefore, very important point that he mentioned is you have to sift SHIFT. You have to SIFT sift facts from fiction, rhetoric from reality. That's very, very important. Very, very important. Now coming to the world architecture, since he's a diplomat here. So coming to the world architecture, you'll find that after the World War II, just all of you kindly keep a note of this. We created few institutions, very important institutions, like I'm talking in the context of the economic architecture. Okay, I'm not getting into the UN and all. We created an International Monetary Fund. We created a World Bank. We created a just keep a note, General Agreement on Trade and Tariff, that was in 1948. And in 1995, we had the World Trade Organization. Now, what was the main objective of that? Why, after the Second World War, all countries realized that four fundamental values, please note down, four fundamental values must be respected by every country. And what are those fundamental values? So the first value, the global value, is that respect each other's sovereignty. Value each other's sovereignty. This was a doctrine in 1919 by Woodrow Wilson, the Wilson Doctrine. So you must respect whether somebody is a tiny country, very, very small island with 5 lakh people, or India with 140 crore people. Each country is sovereignty. You have no business. To intrude into that. So that's global values. Second, friends, please remember that from unilateralism, please note, from unilateralism, the world tried to move towards multilateralism. That means in affairs of trade, you look at every country with the same kind of lens. So it's very, very important. From unilateralism, we move to multilateralism. So therefore, that was a very, very important and the third most important thing was cooperation. And fourth is respect for multilateral institutions. What are the multilateral institutions? IMF, World Bank, World Trade Organization, UNO. These are all multilateral organizations. So the whole fabric of liberal democracy, please note down, the whole fabric of liberal democracy rests on these very, very important 4 points. Is that clear to all of you? So global values, respect for global values and sovereignty, multilateralism, cooperation, and respect for multilateral institutions. But with the Trump coming a second time, there's a wonderful article by clear Havareta. So with the Trump coming, Martin Feld feels, it's a wonderful article by him. He says that with his coming, there is the country which was responsible for many of these global rules is violating them. Are you all getting me? So this is the most worrisome aspect. The country which pleaded for free trade today is becoming a bastion of protection. Is openly, while it agreed with the Paris climate thing, so the president comes, he said, no, I care 2 hoots about the Paris climate agreement. He's encouraging coal miners to, he said, you have mine more gold, more coal. All drilling should be encouraged. So therefore, you have the point that he mentioned, apart from being a felon, on multiple charges, he's also a flagrant violator of military rules. I mean, in this, he is one upon President Bush. Are you all getting me? So you find that there are a few global powers which are setting their own rules regarding wars. Are you getting me? It was started by US in Iraq. It was followed by Russia in Ukraine. And China is not letting behind. It is eyeing on Taiwan. Are you all getting me? So it is all happening because they know that there is nobody to contain them. And sadly, they also have a veto power. Both US and, are you getting my point? Look at the irony of the whole situation. So therefore, we have a situation today where the global powers are setting the rules for wars themselves without getting any sanction from the UNO. They don't go to the UN. That is, suppose that's the forum that they should have gone to. They don't go to UN. So they coolly, this is the first thing. The second thing that is happening is that rise of global bullies. By rise of global so rise of global bullies. Now these bullies, so first would be your Putin, second would be your Jinping, and third is our Trump. Are you good? So you today have global bullies, around. So these are the uncomfortable truths. I mean, I'm not discovering them here in this class. Okay. The other thing Martin Feld writes is very, very interesting. He says that you also have this very interesting phenomena of rise in military expenditure. Please note down, rise in military expenditure. Sharp rise in military expenditure. There is a document called SIPRI. Please note down, friends. Stockholm Institute of Peace and Research Institute. Please note down SIPRI. When we talk of military expenditure, SIPRI, Stockholm Institute of Peace and Research Institute, Stockholm. So CIPRI in its report in 2023, for the first time, reports that global military expenditure has gone up by 7%. Whereas for the previous 10 years, it was reducing by almost 2 to 3%. Please note down, this is again a very, very disturbing trend. Are you getting my point? Earlier, some countries were increasing, but overall, military expenditure was coming down by 2 to 3%. Barring, say, India, barring a few countries like Saudi Arabia, they were spending, Pakistan, they're madcaps. But the general rule was how to reduce military expenditure and spend more on the social sector. Please note down, social sector. Always, if you are in the defense ministry, always the question is bread versus gun versus butter. Do you want to have more guns, or you would like to give more chapati and roti, chapati and ghee to your own people? Are you getting my point? So therefore, world over realized that it makes more sense to reduce military expenditure. So that trend, so the total expenditure today is around $2.8 trillion, and the increase is 7%. Why do we talk so much about US? Why US is the center of all discussion, and why Trump is part of that discussion? I think it's very important to understand some of the data. By the time Franklin D. Roosevelt half finished his term as the fourth president of US, fourth time, America's share of America, please note down, the share of America of the total global wealth was around 33%. By 1942, America accounted for 33% of global wealth. There was hardly any unemployment. He's considered to be such a great politician, great statesman, largely because of this, because he almost removed unemployment, the New Deal policy of Keynes and all, which he did. So even today, please note down, even today, it accounts for, please note down some key figures, because, as a civil servant, if you are giving those run-of-the-mill answers, nobody will give you more than 4 marks. If he got into the foreign service or I got into the Indian service, economic service, because we brought some new dimensions to our answers. Some, the moment the examiner will see your paper, he or she will know, okay, no, he knows a little more, than what we normally talk about. Are you remember? This is very, very important. I keep on telling you that if you want to go from second gear to the fourth gear, what are your additional inputs? So therefore, if you really look at the GDP of the US today, please note down that the total GDP of European Union, all those 27 countries, is 26%. Entire Europe, entire European Union, their wealth is exactly the same as the US. And that's the reason why euro, when it was created as a currency to challenge dollar, has not been able to challenge it. Are you all getting me? Dollar, as Ambassador Malaya Mishra mentioned, continues to be the most dominating currency. It is largely because of this. Are you all getting me? So therefore, many people say, now if BRICS have a new currency, will it be able to challenge dollar? These are all figments of imagination. No way. They will not be able to challenge dollar. Please note down the other very interesting thing. America accounts for 40% of military expenditure. Please note down. 40% of military expenditure is by America. Out of $2.4 trillion, 60% of defense R&D. When you talk of Israel as a very strong country, it is largely because most of its programs are actually run by the US technology. Most of them. I was in the defense ministry for about 6-7 years. I was a director also. Most of the technologies that Israel today is very proud of is basically borrowed from the US. So therefore, in terms of GDP, in terms of military expenditure, in terms of defense R&D, so US is the global hegemon. Then why Ambassador Mishra is saying that why are they afraid of China? Please note down. So therefore, why are they worried about China? Rise of China as a global power. Why China is a global power? Why China is a global power? If all this data about the US is true, कि उसको एकदम जाके अटैक करके जैसे इराक को फ्लैटन कर दिया था, जाके फ्लैटन कर दे. Are you all getting me? तो जैसे पकड़ लिया था पाकिस्तान में किसका जो ओसामा बिन लादेन को जैसे पकड़ लिया था, यहाँ के पकड़ ले, जाके पकड़े चाइना में करे. Why are they everybody worried about China? Are you all getting me? So many times when we try to talk about China, particularly our right-wing economists, they are extremely untrue to themselves. They are extremely, what should I say, so off the mark from the truth. When they talk about China, they say that no, China is not a democracy, it will all fall. Nothing is going to happen. Please remember this. Nothing is going to happen to China. China is a very, very strong economic power. Now let's understand why we are calling China a global economic power. Just note down some of the very interesting data that Martin Fels brings out. So he says that in 2023, China produced 12.6 times of steel compared to US. That was the reason why Hitler started the Second World War. In 1936, Hitler found that is the total steel that was being produced in Germany was more than the steel produced all over the world. He said steel is the king. Like Lenin said, electricity is the king. So he said, I have all the steel, all the tanks, all the aircraft, all the submarines, I can make it. Are you all getting me? So today, it has 12.6 times of steel. Just note down, friends. These are very, very interesting data. Very, very interesting data. It also has 3 times of electric cars. It's the major manufacturer of electric cars. It is giving a run for money, not to the US alone. It is giving a run for money to Japan and Germany for the first time. Are you all getting me? 50%, please note down, 50% of ships are coming out of the shipyards of China. Please note down, these are the data. When you give this data, 50% of commercial ships come out of the Chinese shipyard. So, and fourth, of course, all of us know that it is the biggest manufacturing hub. And in 2023, please note down, it had a trade surplus of $1 trillion. In 2023, it had a trade surplus of $1 trillion. And US has the biggest trade deficit versus China. The last but not the least is, it is also trying to be the #1 in semiconductor and AI. Those of you who are from the engineering stream, please note down. It is moving out from, please note down, it is moving out from low technology now, low technology or medium technology to high technology. It is investing very, very heavily in AI, artificial intelligence, semiconductors, Are you all getting me? While Nirmala allocated 500 crores for ramping up our SME sector, China allocated only $2 billion. I have met several Chinese delegations. I have been to that country a few times. They are, thinking so big and so ahead of times, the right. So therefore, whether you will like it or not, and that is why, as you very rightly mentioned, for President Trump, apart from the headache in Israel and Hamas, that Middle East, which he very rightly says possibly will peter out. But what will not peter out in days to come is the dominance or the challenge which they are facing from China. And please remember, and China has also become a very, very powerful country because they have also, please note down, partnered with Russia now. This is again another very interesting thing, China and Russia. Energy, on the issue of energy. So today, Trump doesn't like NATO. Earlier, US had a relationship with NATO. So he is not very fond of NATO. He's not very fond of NATO. So it is to the great advantage of China. Are you all getting me? So they are not like Obama ke Trans-Pacific Pact bana lenge. Trans-Pacific Pact is dead and gone. It is like the Dead Sea. So therefore, today you have a world where Trump knows that, it is going to have a run for money from China and Russia as a combined economic force pitted against America, small European nations, and Japan. Are you all getting me? And there are many in Western Europe who are not really with USSR, with USA on this. So therefore, having said all that, this is how we. And then the fifth thing I thought I'll just mention to you is that the pandemic. Now the pandemic, what has it done basically? That it has moved the clock from free trade to hypernationalism. Please note down, friends. Not nationalism, hypernationalism. You have President Macron, whom you consider to be a very democratic person. At the height of pandemic, when he was asked to, export a lot of wheat which was rotting in France, he said, no, let the wheat rot in France. I'm not going to give away my corn now. We are, he was in favor of corns rotting in France rather than giving it to a few needy countries. So therefore, you live in a world where hyper-nationalism, everybody, you have to see each one from Narendra Modi to Macron, you find different levels of hyper-nationalism, which is around the world. Are you getting my point? So therefore, there's a beautiful article in Economics Today that today the world is having gated globalization. It came in the IAS last year. This question came, what is gated globalization? Gated globalization means you have all kinds of control, capital control, trade controls. Are you all getting me? Trade protection, tariff protection. So from a world where we reveled in, free trade. Please note down, a very wonderful article has come by Jagdish Bhagwati that from 50 years of free trade, please note down, from 50 years of free trade, today we have got into the rut of gated globalization. That is how the world is all about. These are all exogenous factors. You have no control. You have very little control. Are you all getting me? You have very little control. So having said all that, let me come down to implications of Donald Trump on India. India, as I look at it, on the economic dimension. He has already mentioned about some of the political issues, the cultural issues. I'll concentrate on a few. The first thing would be on defense and military cooperation. I'm writing an exhaustive article for Journal of Defense Studies on this, so therefore I thought that let me share some of the findings. I think that Mr. Donald Trump is very, very convinced that India is no longer going to put most of its eggs with Russia. It is going to put more and more eggs with US. So there is a move. Please note down. There is a move from the apron strings of Russia to the carpet of US. Okay. So, and that started in 1998. Please note down. After the Kargil happened in 1999, okay, I happened to be a director with Dr. Kalam at that time, so I can share with you. In 98, friends, 1998, the US imposed sanctions on us when we tested the nuclear bomb. So this imposed sanctions on India. And the first project which was very badly affected was the Light Combat Aircraft, LCA project. I was very closely associated with this particular program. We had invested some $250 million for developing, please note down, a flight control system with a company called Martin Marietta Overseas Corporation. It's called the Lockheed Martin now, which produces your F-16. So I was part of this contract for the LCA, for the flight control system. The entire flight control system was to be designed by Martin Marietta Corporation, $250 million, and we had paid them 20% as an advance. But when the nuclear bomb was done, they reneged from the commitment. I still remember I spent about 2 days in the US. We pleaded them to at least not completely come out of this because we had no alternative. We wanted to develop this light combat aircraft because this was to replace MiG-21 aircraft. So we were very, very keen that we keep the kettle burning. You won't believe that they didn't return a single pie to us. All that 20%, they were not prepared for any discussion. It's another matter. It's another matter when we came back. I had gone with Kalam. It's another matter. It was that in 15 years' time, we developed this system indigenously. And today, the flight control system, we are exporting to Russia and several other countries. Give them a big hand. The same country which was completely dependent on the US. So I still remember Dr. Kalam, when he came back, we were all very depressed. I said, sir, wo to advance kha gaya, sab kha gaya, kuch nahi kar sakte. He said, not to worry. So he gave a call to all Indians living abroad that come back to this country and help me to develop the flight control system. In a year's time, we had about 100 scientists from all over the world. They used to come for 3 months. They were all being housed in Hyderabad, RCA Hyderabad. These were the guys who said, we will develop an indigenous flight control system. These stories are not there in the papers. Sometimes I think I should write about this. These stories are not there. The story that you find in the newspapers or in the news media is something else, So it was a great moment of pride for us. Okay, we developed a flight control system. Der hai to andher nahi hai, So better late than never. That is what we did. So therefore, this was the story of India-US relationship in 1996. But when Kargil happened, we had a lot of casualty because of something called a please note down, gun locating radar. We did not have a gun locating radar. Please note down, gun locating radar, which used to be developed by the DRDO. DRDO had taken up an indigenous program in 1992. But when Kargil thing happened, and the then army chief wanted whether our this gun locating radar is functional, Kalam said simply, no, it is not yet developed. So one of the fallouts of this was, I distinctly remember the then chief went to the Prime Minister and complained to him, just it is because that, because of Kalam, we could not import the gun locating radar. Are you getting my point? He said so many people were killed, all these people are killed because we didn't have a gun locating radar. But they were also looking for excuses, na? कि भाई उनका इंटेलिजेंस मार खा गया और मिला उनको कलाम साहब मिले, समझ गया ना? So the government was so distraught that they sent a team to the US, in which I was part of it. And we went for what is known as the Foreign Military Sales route. Please note down, FMS route. In 1999, we bought this gun locating radar from the US with a stipulation that it cannot move towards China. Please note down, it will move only towards Pakistan. Are you all getting me? Just I'm telling you a little bit of, very interesting nuggets about history. History is very interesting, provided you are interested to delve deep into it, and not be poisoned by rhetorics and ideology. So in 1999, we became a fan of the US. And 99 for me is a watershed year where our cooperation with the US really went sky high. Because before that, it was Russia. Are you getting my point? So FMS, please note the FMS. Now what is happening? America is eyeing at fighter aircraft. Heavyweight aircrafts and surveillance systems. UAVs. Please note down, these are the three things that they are targeting. Surveillance system, very, very high level of, level of surveillance system called HEL, which are weaponized. And they have done something in collaboration. Short point I'm just trying to make without making a song and dance about it, is that America knows for sure that India needs all this. And it is better to partner with the US. So Mr. Trump knows that Modi Sahab will go there, have the red carpet, वहां पर वो धोखला खाएगा, ये करेगा, ड्रामा करेगा और ये सब खरीद के लाएगा. He is absolutely certain that all these things should be there. But I just want to say something to you, because I have seen our cooperation with the US and Russia very, very closely. I have joined Secretary HAL for about 6 years. So I can tell you, when it comes to technology transfer, please note down, friend, when it comes to technology transfer, one is purchase. Please note down, you buy something, critical technology from a country, you buy an equipment. Or the other alternative is that some country gives you the technologies from which you can develop a system. The record of Russia has been extremely edifying on that. Please note down, they have passed on very key technologies to us, which is not the case with the US. US has passed on very key technology to Japan and South Korea. Never to other countries. Are you getting my point? America बेचेगा आपको कि सर ले लीजिए ना gun. So when we were buying this gun locating radar, I remember I mentioned this point that would you like to give us some technology transfer? I was almost asked to shut up because as a director of finance, so you said because that is the key to self-reliance. Are you all getting me? Because then you learn the technologies. One is buy a technology, buy something and use it. The other is buy the technology, get yourself skilled and get yourself equipped. Are you all getting me? So therefore, the first and foremost thing that I can mention is that the US administration knows that India will depend on them for a number of very critical military systems, particularly fighter aircrafts, heavy. Now, Russia is very cheesed up because I have a number of friends there, that these heavyweight aircrafts, I remember when discussion was going on regarding Rafale, Rafale aircraft, President Obama had come. President Obama had come essentially to lobby for F-16. He hadn't come to shake hands with the students in a public school. He had come, basically, he wanted us to take F-16. I was present at part of the discussion. So when we said that, will you give technology of G414 engine, which is required for this, G414 engine, he said, we'll consider. For the first time, because they were so desperate, Russia was very desperate, so was France. That was the only time I found that every country was prepared to give us technology. Are you all getting me what I'm trying to say? One is you buy it, you have the money, you buy it. The other is you equip yourself technologically through a technology transfer route. So therefore, to me, so technology is one. Depreciation of rupee, that is something, that's in the air, depreciation. Now, depreciation of rupee is a function of your export strength. And please note down, and import requirement. This is very, very important. It is not only a function of your export strength. Like, for instance, in 1966, please note down, friends, when rupee was devalued by 20%, it devalued by 20%. It didn't make any dent to export increase. Please note down. In 1966, it was considered one of the huge blunders by Mrs. Gandhi, and L.K. Jha was the person who advised her that it would be good. But export didn't really improve. In 91, we also devalued by 22%. Sadly, that also was not very effective. India's export improved very little bit because of export. Now, because export, please remember, friends, is a function of price, quality, and delivery. While our price may be good, when we are trying to compete with, say, a country like China, or say, a country like Thailand, country like Vietnam in garments, you'll find that their quality, on the quality quotient, we have many times floundered. And on delivery, we are big time failures. We did an analysis to see why is our export not rising with so much of incentive and all. Are you all getting me? These data are never given out. But we in the ministry look into all that. Why our export is not doing well. The other thing is the import requirement. See, whether you like it or not, 70% of our oil comes through import. Please note down. From almost 50%, we are 50% in 1980, 50% indigenous. Now that has become 80%. 80% of our oil comes through import. After Bombay High, I don't think we have done much. Energy-wise, we haven't done anything. Are you all getting me? So import requirement, please remember, one of the things apart from flight control system at that time in 98 was India was importing a lot of critical components. Please note down, critical components, electronic components from the US. Yes, that was also denied to us. Are you all getting me? So when we talk of reducing import requirement, you have to see what is the quality of reduction. Please note down. If the quality of reduction is that you are not getting critical equipments which would have helped you for export. Are you all getting me? Our entire export-import policy is geared in such a way that, the kind of import that you do help you in export promotion. Now, that is not happening. That is not happening because we are, it is affecting both the import and as well as export. So when you see, like Mr. Malaya said, that our balance of trade is only minus 1.3%, we feel very happy. This is again data. This is again falsehood. Somebody would say, no, balance of trade, if it is only more than 3%, then only it is bad. Okay, please note down. One of the figures people say that if your balance of trade is more than 3%, if your export, the import is more than 3% than of export, then we say it is bad. So somebody would say minus 1.3%. but it camouflages the truth that both your export and both your imports are down. Please note down. Are you all getting me or not? Are you understanding the difference between opinion and facts? When somebody says, no, look at your balance of trade. It has come down from minus 2.7% to minus 1.3%. Just do a little bit of fact check. You'll find that neither your export is increasing, nor that is not, or your import reduction is also in the wrong places. Are you all getting me? We are talking about gold reduction, a reduction in the import of gold. There's no implication. Are you getting me? This is not the thing which is required. Okay, whether you get 5 tolas of gold or 10 tolas of gold, I'm not bothered. What I'm really bothered is, am I getting the whole thing? The final point I'd like to mention is that I'm also greatly worried by the tendency towards market fundamentalism. It all started with that rogue called Reagan in the 70s. I call him a rogue. Reaganomics is nothing but rogue economics. What did Reagan do? He reduced the tax rate of the top person to 60% to 35%. And his joker, the lackey, has brought it down to 26%. Now he's saying that he'll bring it down to 22%. This is the story of Reagan. This is the story of Trump. And this would be Trump too. Tax rate at the top. Please note down. Tax rate at the top has been brought down from 60% to 35%. And it was Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1933. He increased the tax rate to 65% on the top income. That's the story. He was a Republican. He increased the tax rate on the super rich from 33% to 65%. The entire funding of the New Deal program was done out of tax which was imposed on the top income people. People forget that history. What is happening today? That you are essentially, by reducing the tax rate, what are you doing? You are accentuating inequality. Please note down. The point which Malaya started with, growth is happening, distributive justice is not happening. Please note down. I end by saying that we are growing, but where is the distributive justice? Where is the shared prosperity that we talk of? Are you all getting me? So all this is happening because we are following what is known as market fundamentalism. Favor the corporates, reduce all regulation. Please note down, all regulations. Do away with all market regulations. Give them a completely free hand. Let them run amok. That is why you have this, what is called crony capitalism. Are you all getting me? There is no level playing field. There's a lovely, article the other day by a wonderful economist from Harvard, Kenneth Roosevelt. Please note, Kenneth Roosevelt. He writes a regular column in New York Times. You read Business Standard, anything on Kenneth Roosevelt. He writes it extremely, extremely well. So he says that, the inequality which is happening, increasing inequality, is not an accident of history. It is all because it's a conscious public policy. Are you all getting me? Which Piketty mentioned. Piketty said in 2013, but Roosevelt says that it is all continuing. In the budget today, the clamor is that reduce the tax rate on the corporates. Personal income tax on him and me is 30%, 35%. The guy who pays 50,000 crores, he also pays 35%. This is the only country where I find this. No other country has this kind of phenomenon. We don't discuss this. So I would say that one of the curses of India is that we have been following Reaganomics from 1991. It was Mr. Chidambaram who brought down from 50% tax rate at the top to 30%. He was the guy. Why talk of right-wing ideologues like Modi? Even the so-called, left-oriented Congress people, they were the ones. Are you all getting me? Now, the interesting thing is, somebody would say, no, sir, it has increased our tax collection. That's the biggest lie which is going around. Do you know that when, Ronald Reagan reduced it from 60 to 35%, so people said that it will all come down. Tax collection will improve. Tax collection never improved. Tax collection never improved. Tax collection came down. But it helped the fat cats to hide their income, to prosper, to bully the labor unions. You read, a wonderful book by, Joseph Stiglitz. You'll find that how he calls it a double jeopardy. Double jeopardy means you reduce the tax rate and then you bully the unions so that they can't fight against you. Also, it's a double jeopardy. Are you getting me? Double jeopardy. So you favor the corporates, you also emasculate the trade unions. Daba ke unko rakho. So I personally find that that's a very disturbing trend. Apart from the rising spate of Hindu nationalism, which varies both of us very badly. So these are my takes, friends, on what is going to happen on the military side. Now, the last point which you mentioned was on the rupee, isn't it? Depreciation of rupee. Some of you depreciate rupee. Now, as I said, rupee is a function of what? Export and import, isn't it? It's a function of export and import. Now, what is happening today when, the Biden was the president? So, during Biden's thing, what he did, the Fed rates, please note down, Fed rates were being brought down because he wanted inflation to come down. Inflation was more than 10%. So during his time, inflation has actually come down to around 5.6%. He could contain inflation. He could also contain unemployment. I mean, it's a great irony that despite two very stellar achievements during the Biden, forget about his looks and that he's aging and all, I'm not getting into all those things, the physiological aspects of Biden. But it is a fact that through very sensible Fed policy, inflation came down. Unemployment also came down. Now one hears very clearly that Trump is going to increase the Fed rates. What will be the implication? Please note down, the implication, I was telling him when we are sharing dinner, the implication is that the dollar, the bond rates of US will be far more attractive than the bond rates in India. What is a bond rate? So when government is trying to raise money, please note down 10 years bond. Today, on an average, we pay about 7%. On an average, around 7% is what we pay when we are trying to raise money, 7%. In the US, today, the bond rate is around 5.2%. So if it goes up to 5.8%, most of the money which was flowing to India, because, they were getting higher bond rates here, so that advantage would be gone. Are you all getting me? Please note down this. So when you have to answer very specifically, kaise, depreciation ka kya, are you getting my point? So when dollar appreciates, please remember, rupee will depreciate. Please note down, this is very interesting. When dollar appreciates, rupee will depreciate. Because to that extent, the American bonds will be more and more attractive. But China will be able to wade through that because most of the lower middle class Americans are consumers of Chinese products. I still remember when me and my wife first went to Paris. I remember in 1996, we were looking for those Eiffel Towers, those small souvenirs. So in the main market, they were costing something like 20 francs or so. So somebody told me, "Ki side mein Chinese market mein chale jaiye na." So then we found that everything was $1. So we bought 5. So we still have those 5, and we say, no, we brought it in France. We never told the story. So that is that, So lower middle class Bombay, where I lived, for about 3 years, during rains, I suddenly found all my lady employees. I had about 500 lady employees. It was an office which was dominated by women. So I suddenly found that every, umbrella looked far more colorful. So I asked one of them, where have you bought this? Sir, it is a Chinese umbrella. I said, why do you buy this? Is because is it more colorful? He said, no, sir. When the wind comes, it doesn't overturn like the Indian ones. वो छटाक नहीं मारता है. आपका जो इंडियन है तो गंदा, एक तो गंदा कलर आप लगाते हो, ब्लैक फ्लैग जो है ना. सेकेंड इज हवा लगता है ना, तो हवा में उड़ते जाए तो लाल दुपट्टा मलमल. So the Chinese one will stay. Are you all getting me? So that is the story to the Chinese economy. So that is how. So I would call it, I said at the beginning, if I have to write an article on this, I would say that we are going through maverick uncertainty. Maverick uncertainty, because there is a maverick and then there's a lot of uncertainty that is swirling around us. So give a big hand to Abbas and Malaya, and we'll be very happy to now take questions. No, nothing. Thank you very much, friends. Thank you.
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Very well.
I leave it to
Sir,
हाँ,
good afternoon, sir. A question, sir.
कौन? आप 5 मिनट.
Sir,
हाँ, कौन?
in contemporary US-China rivalry, hello, sir. Am I audible?
कौन तू?
Yes, sir. In contemporary US-China rivalry, can India promulgate its strategic autonomy in its foreign policy in future? क्योंकि सर यूएसए में जो डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प की मागा कैंपेन और यूएस फर्स्ट कैंपेन और चाइनीज प्रेसिडेंट शी जिनपिंग चाइनीज ड्रीम. So, sir, can India continue its strategic autonomy?
I will leave it to my friend. He should answer this because I have not been involved in any policy, strategic foreign policy. I have not been really involved. My
Sir, Foreign Secretary Samkaran told that India cannot continue its strategic autonomy.
strategic autonomy is a thing of the past. All of us know we were very strategically aligned towards the Russia. When the Indo-Soviet Treaty happened in 1971, we were strategically aligned towards them. But as I mentioned, the 1998, after the Kargil in 1999, that was a watershed moment. There, I think I can share my experience from of the services. I have been privy to them. Most of them prefer Western equipment. Most of them. When it comes to their preference, while I'll just give a ballpark figure that you'll understand. A Sukhoi 30 aircraft, which I negotiated in 1998, just note down, friends, it was about 270 crores. 270 crores. The Sukhoi aircraft, Sukhoi 30 aircraft was about 270 crores. It should be around 350, 400 now. And at that time, a similar aircraft from the US was costing us about 800 crores. On an average, it would be about 3 to 4 times of any. But, even if they're comparable in performance, the services were always, in fact, they would say, "Kyun Mishra Sahab inke saath kar rahe ho? Let us go and get it from America. Let us get it from France." So France, for instance, is very expensive. My whole experience of negotiation has been France delivers by far qualitatively the best equipments, but it is also the most expensive. Also the most expensive. So, so strategic autonomy, cannot lie in vacuum. You have to also see what are the options available before you. Like, for instance, if you need to take your people to Siachen Glacier in a huge, not an ALH. ALH can only take 16 people. But if you want to take them in a transport aircraft, which will also carry tanks, you require a transport aircraft from the US. Are you all getting? I'm just giving an example. If you want to have a UAV, which can strike with precision from a height of 40,000 feet, okay, you can get it from the US and Israel. So please remember, in the world of defense market, it's an oligopoly, and there is very little choice. Okay, so you cannot have a strategic autonomy, or you cannot have an ideological bent of mind and say, like, for instance, Mr. Malaya will agree that we had our strategic autonomy when we continue to import oil from Russia, isn't it? Though the Americans were not happy about it, we had a strategic autonomy. So that makes a lot of sense, lots of sense. But you cannot say, "Nahi, main ye nahi karunga." As they say that, there are no permanent friends, no permanent, there are only permanent interests. So therefore, a country, you cannot hang all your eggs or put all your eggs in one country. But as I said, it is not such a easy thing to do. As I mentioned to you, when it comes to technology transfer, I mean, my own experience has been that Russia has been far more forthcoming than Americans. The French are quite forthcoming, for your information, but at a very high price. I remember a focal play array technology which we wanted to take from France, which was denied by America. Then the French gave us. And I remember I went to the Dr. Kalam. He said, "Don't negotiate with those guys. They will not give you the technology. Because you can never produce a focal plane array in this country. You may say that, I can produce, but believe me, so therefore you cannot be ideologically stubborn. Okay, this is the policy. This is the policy. You have to be a little flexible. But, at the same time, the impression that I get today is that we are heavily tilted towards the US. That's the impression. And my friends who know, I mean, because I've dealt with the Russians very closely, so that tightrope walking which India is trying to do will essentially enable it to buy it as a buyer, but will not get any technology. Our self-reliance quotient will not improve with this kind of a strategy. Let us accept this. There are many key technologies which you do not have. And so the choice is, do you buy this or do you? There are three options. Once you develop in your own laboratory, that's the best way. Are you getting my point? That's the best way, like the light combat aircraft we did, or the Smarch missiles that we did. There are quite a couple of things. Quite a few ammunitions we did. The rifles we did. Are you getting my point? 7.62 rifles we did. It's not as if that the story is a blank. No, it's not. The flight control system we have developed indigenously. Electronic warfare system. Please note on electronic warfare system. When I went to Russia in 2007, they said, "Would you like to sell us the?" I said, "Well, how do you know?" He said, "We know that your program is successful. Electronic warfare programs, all this jamming of communication. Indians, we don't hear these stories." Are you getting my point? So it's not such a blank plate. Are you getting my point? But self-reliance will not happen through hyperboles and rhetorics. It requires very hard work. So as I said, either develop your R&D. For instance, we spend 0.8% on research and development. Do you know how much Israel spends? 7%. The private sector in France spends 80% of the R&D. Private sector. Whereas in India, it is 80% by the government sector. Tatas and all spend hardly anything on technology, R&D. They're all only integrators. We hardly have any indigenous. I can talk of defense. I've written number of articles on this. We have not developed. For that, you need to build up your own institutions. It will not just come out of thin air. You can't have a CV Raman and to give you lights, give you illumination and everything. It requires. So huge investment in R&D is also required. If you are not doing it through your own R&D, go for technology transfer. And the third option is buy it. So the irony of India, I'll end with this. The irony of India is that we swear by self-reliance and we buy everything American at night. This is the supreme irony. Self-reliance of है study अच्छा बनने की self-reliance है. But self-reliance, say in a flight control system which Kalam did, it's not happening. Just not happening. You know, the other day he had gone to Madras and saw for Kalam. Why people speak so highly of him? Not because he was just a good person. He also developed very, very key technologies. I was part of that whole thing that he was doing, and he ensured. I'll just tell you one last story about Kalam. You know, 1998, I went to the Aero Show with him, which was happening in Bangalore. Now, in the Aero Show, the best of aircrafts, everything is on display. So generally, you'll find the Saleh of HAL, Saleh of DRDO is the smallest one. Most of foreigners वहीं पर घूमते रहते हैं. They want to sell you all kinds of things. So suddenly, I found that one parachute fell. We are sitting, Kalam and I were sitting together with the parachute came down and parachute fell beautifully. So he danced with joy. He said, "Oh, wonderful, wonderful." I said, "Sir, what happened?" He said, "That's the Indian parachute." He said, "You don't know, buddy, in Agra we have developed it. We took out 15 years. So I said, "Sir, why don't you display?" He said, "No, they didn't give me that opportunity." So he then, I still remember, he went and told the defense minister at that time that, "Sir, please give it a display. That we have our own parachute system. India इतना अपंग नहीं है कि जरा foreigner के parachute में Indian को बचाएगा." He used to always say that दिल है हिंदुस्तानी, मेरा जूता है जापानी, दिल है हिंदुस्तानी. He said मेरा दिल हिंदुस्तानी होना चाहिए. हिंदुस्तानी होगा तो अपना parachute बनेगा, अपना parachute बनेगा. Are you getting my point? So where are those people? Where are those people? That kind of commitment, where are those people? These are all charlatans. You know, they are masquerading as leaders. You know, I'm sorry to say this. They're all charlatans. But I can say this here, otherwise, you know. So over to you, sir. Over to you. I think.
I have nothing more to add to
No,
what you
please.
said so elaborately and so technically. I am not a much of a technical hand. I'll just conclude our discussion today with a global scenario where India is poised today. As you said, we are in a multilateral world. Multilateralism is the theme of the time. India is not a big power. Number one, remember this. India is not yet a big power.
Just keep a note. Just keep a note. See,
Eh,
please
eh,
remember, you know, he is a former ambassador speaking. I'm not flattering him. When we go abroad, let me you know, I have seen all the services. I've seen the military from very close quarters. I've seen the IAS, IPS very close. But you know, when you go to a foreign country, which I have the privilege of going to quite a few, you have a real sense of pride for our IFS officers. You know, they articulate, they speak. You will not find a single false sentence from here. Look at the articulation of words. They are trained like that. You know what? Because when they are abroad, they know that they represent the country. Whereas an IAS officer, when he's a collector, he's so full of himself. He is not bothered. Okay, वो तो सोचता है कि मैं दादा हूँ, मैं तो महाराजा हूँ यहाँ पर. But he cannot think himself as a Maharaja amongst 150 ambassadors in a party. You know, he has to conduct himself in such a way. I'm just sharing it with you. He has to conduct himself in such a way that people respect what he says. So therefore, please keep up. Yeah, please finish. I'll not speak.
Thank you. So just disabuse yourself of the notion that we have come to a stage to challenge countries like China. As Professor Mishra also put it, China is in a league of its own now. In fact, America's only job today is to contain China, China's rise. The rise of China is bugging America. Any president who comes to America will be bugged with this idea how China is growing, how China is growing so massively. Now, let me give you an instance. We had a recent border agreement with China. You remember that? This was in October, just days before Xi Jinping and Modi met in the BRICS summit in Russia. This was stage managed. This border agreement was fixed. And this is an inside story I'm telling you. All of you will read that we had a tremendous success after 25 odd rounds of military and diplomatic talks between India and China. We have finished. The problem is now sorted out. The foreign minister went to town saying that now we are starting our de-induction of troops and we are now starting de-escalation and our border issue is sorted out. Nothing is far from the truth. Our border issue is not sorted out. Our border issue is still live. Just to give you the recent quotation of our army chief, which he made yesterday at a press conference, that we are not going to de-induct troops from the border till at least next summer, when we conduct a review that is it worth the time that we withdraw our troops from the border. Because on the other side of the border, we don't know. Of course, we have been supplied some technology by the US, their satellite technology, to know what is China doing on the other side. But we do not know the quantum of infrastructure China is building so rapidly on their side of the border. So we are not sure whether we should pull out our troops now or wait until we have a proper mapping of the situation on both sides to check this supposedly Chinese incursion into our borders. Because the border agreement has been very fluid. We never had a proper border agreement with China because all that 4,500 kilometer of the so-called LAC, line of actual control, has not been ever demarcated, not even during British time. The British had only part of that border with Tibet at that time, whom China occupied. So they disowned the agreement which was signed by Tibet, saying that this border agreement has no value for us because Tibet is now a part of China. So that is where the matter stands. We've had successive agreements between India and China right from 2003 when Prime Minister Vajpayee went to China. We had the first agreement. 2005 we had another agreement. 2008 we had another agreement. But despite all these agreements, China is bent upon harassing India to the point that India is held captive to China's various kind of informal attacks, I would say, on our border. So our competition with China is fundamental to our territorial integrity. I will tell that. Just keep it in your mind that our territorial integrity, in a way, is dependent on China's largesse. We are pretending to be very big. We can give a big jolt to China and all. Nothing further from the truth. China is 5 times technologically, militarily, diplomatically more than us. Financially more than us. At one time when we broke apart, when we had this wave of liberalization, globalization, China from Deng Xiaoping's era, since the 78, Rajiv Gandhi, when he met there, at that time they have started liberalizing their economy. We came 20 years later. We fell back from China by more than 20 years in our liberalization process. So we are nowhere near the Chinese the way they are developing now. They are developing by leaps and bounds, and we are nowhere. Of course, Professor Satya Mishra has worked actively, extensively in the Defense Department. He has given a very big picture of how the defense industry works. But if you ask me, We have this Atmanirbhar Bharat program, as we all know, self-reliance program. If you ask me, I don't think we have gone into developing critical technology in the defense sector.
Very important. Please keep it.
We have not developed. That's why we have now got an agreement called ISET with the US to develop critical and emerging technologies, which has been formed during the Biden administration between the two NSAs. ISET, ICET, critical and emerging technologies. So there we are looking at semiconductors. There we are looking at how we develop our own critical technology in defense and all that. So we have had nothing so far. In fact, ironically, Taiwanese are helping us in developing our semiconductor industry sector. So we are willy-nilly to take the help of Taiwan, in fact, affronting China. And therefore, China is never going to lose its grip over India, over its border. The latest is that they are building a huge dam, the biggest dam of China on our border. What they will do, they can stop the flow of water into Indian territory. The Brahmaputra, what they call in Chinese some Yulong or something they say. Yeah. So remember that. Why are they building that dam? They can check the flow of Brahmaputra water into Indian territory. They can, if they want, they can block it. So China, being an upper riparian country, because they are in the upper ranges of the Himalayas and we are at the lower end, we have to bear the brunt of Chinese incursions. That also extends to warfare. If there is tomorrow a war, a physical war, of course, nobody now talks of a physical war. We are all talking about cyber warfare and hybrid warfare and all that. But should there be a physical warfare, like what happened in 1962, we will again face a massive, unpreparedness, I would say. Why? Because China always will have geographical edge over us. They are sitting over us. They are dominating over us. We are at the bottom. They are at the top. So the person who is at the top has that liberty to give you a kick, and then you can't do nothing. You can only counter. You can only counter. So we can never adopt an offensive posture, offensive doctrine against China in warfare. We can.
Please keep a note.
So we can only defend ourselves. And how we defend ourselves is dependent on the state of preparedness of our defense forces. And the state of preparedness of our defense forces, because of technological inputs, will have to be technologically directed with a lot of our control. Our own technology has to come into play, which is still not developed. So the reverse situation now, unfortunately, which he didn't mention, which I think I should also say something, increasing communalization of our defense forces, which is a big, big hindrance to the uprightness of our defense forces. This Agniveer scheme, the Agniveer scheme, it was basically to induct, listen to me carefully, the Agniveer scheme, much against the advice of our service chiefs, that no, this is not a good scheme. We can have at best a kind of a transitional period of recruitment for 3 or 4 years, and then we make them regular, defense personnel. That was refused by the government. And that the previous army chief has recorded in his book, which has now been banned because of this, because the defense chiefs, all the 3 chiefs, did not agree with the Agniveer scheme. Why? Because the Agniveer scheme was just a distraction to the so-called huge unemployment situation by giving employment to a group of people, and after a period of 4 years or so, throw them out. They are of no use to you. Just retain 1/4 of them, and 3/4 are discarded. And what they will do, they will be employed as security guards or something with some army training. Now, you are giving 4 years of army training. The guy has got some arms maybe. He has got training, but he cannot utilize it. After 4 years, he is bekar. He is back in the unemployment market, or he sits in some high-rise building as a chokidar. That's what he is. So this whole Agniveer scheme needs to be relooked. And why were we doing it? Because we were more and more incorporating our army into this so-called this communal flavor and making them more and more. I mean, I have seen many army installations, navy installations. You will have all religions represented in those installations. You will have a gurdwara, you will have a temple, you will have a church, you will have all religions represented. Now, gradually we find if you go to, recent, army setups and all that, only temples stay there. The churches are out, the gurdwaras are out, only temples are there. So there is a gradual progressive, communal color given to the defense forces, which will be a hindrance to us. It will not be a strength to us. It will be a hindrance because our army or our defense forces has always believed in the position of neutrality. We do not surrender to the political masters. That's why we have never had a military coup in India, unlike Pakistan, which has for 35 years, they had coups after coups. But we never had a coup. That is the only reason our defense forces are apolitical. Apolitical means you are not politically aligned with the leadership of the day. But today, my fear is our defense forces are getting more and more politicized, which is not good for us, because that depletes our unity, our strength. Our strength lies in our unity. In our armed forces, we have Sikh battalions fighting with Nepali regiments, with Bengali regiments, with Madras regiment. So we have the entire India represented in our, in our defense forces in various formations. Now that is going to suffer. That will be a casualty. So coming to India's positioning in the universe, in the, the international relations system, India is building itself up. I don't deny that, but it will take us a long time. There is no scope for hyperbole here. There is no scope because everybody knows what India is today. It is not only the Western inspired media, but every media, even in India, social media, outside media, knows what we are doing to our people here. How uncaring we have become in terms of distributive justice, how uncaring we have in terms of treating our minorities, how uncaring we have in terms of distributing the resources of the country and putting it all in one hand or two hands. So this is all known to everybody outside India. We may be putting our blinkers over our eyes and sleeping and all that, but the whole world knows what India is doing now. So you will be the future, the leaders of this country. You will be the future administrators. Please keep your eyes and ears open to what is going on.
Neutral. And be ideologically neutral.
And be ideologically neutral.
I keep on saying that. Civil service.
Do not saffronize your mindset. Do not saffronize the way you think. You think as an Indian and Indian only. You have no color. You cannot put on any color. And whatever you do is personal. Of late, the government has even given permission to civil servants to join the RSS. Is unheard of, unthought of ever. That civil servants, our mandate is to play a neutral role. We have to, take the task of governance forward, but we have to stay apolitical. We cannot politicize the civil service. Never. But today, the government has given carte blanche. Any civil servant of any cadre, of any age group can go and join the RSS. I think this is a traumatic thing which has happened to the bureaucracy of today. Don't fall into this trap. This is my sincere request to you all. Be sincere in what you are doing. Be confident in what you are doing. Think what you are doing is good for the people, for the society. After all, what are we serving? Who are we serving? We are serving the people of India. And they constitute the democracy of India. They are the harbingers of the Constitution of India. So we have to always look at that. not are the people who are at the helm manipulating things for us. Do not fall into the trap of being manipulated, because you are minds which are working now to get some kind of position in the society, to do some service to the society. So think it very clearly within yourself. How would you like to conduct yourself? You know, be a RSS Bhakt and join the RSS if you wish, or do proper service wherever, whichever office you are posted in the service of the nation, for the service of the people. I think I'll end here, and well, thank you very much. Yeah. Any other question anybody has, or you are all fed up now?
You'll never get a more attentive class than this.
Yeah.
I take classes everywhere.
We could have gone on for longer time, but it's 2 o'clock, time for lunch. Deepak, what are He's coming. Should we wait for him or we depart?
We'll go for the lunch.
We'll go. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.